going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I am going to be doing the final part 4 of favorite albums of artists that I collect. This is a series that I started this year, and if you want to catch up on the other parts, be sure to click the icon in the top right hand corner. For part 4, we are going to be focusing on the letters S to Z, and like I always say, enough of the chit chat, let's jump into what this video is all about. Starting off with one of my favorite modern indie rock bands, Silver Sun Pickups, and this is their debut album Carnivorous, which came out back in 2006. This is perhaps their most notable album since it does feature tracks like Lazy Eye, which were on Guitar Hero and Rock Band. That's how I first became aware of these guys. Little Lovers So Polite, which was featured on the soundtrack to the film Jennifer's Body. Then we also have some other great indie rockers on here, such as Well Thought Out Twinkles, Dream at Tempo 119, Common Reactor, Wasted On. If you're into like Smashing Pumpkins, you will absolutely love these guys. Brian Auger, who is the guitarist and vocalist, has a very strong Billy Corgan type of vocal sound to him. Lots of great textured guitars, synthesizers, some great groovy bass work by Nicky Moninger. Just an absolutely great album and a great band, and if you haven't checked this album out, I highly recommend you do so. And then we get into some American prog with Styx, and this is their album Equinox. This was their first album on A&M Records, and this was also the last album to feature guitarist John Kurlewski, who was replaced by Tommy Shaw. Great tracks on this album. There's the song Light Up. I don't know what that's about. Lorelei, which was the big single off of this record. Mother Dear is a great track. Lonely Child. Sweet Madam Blue, which is a great epic piece. Very appropriate for the time that this album came out, which was right around the time of the American Bicentennial. This is just an absolutely remarkable record, and also features a really cool album cover of a block of ice on fire. Absolutely great Styx album. And up next is, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with this, this is like a vinyl collection must-have. Tramp, Breakfast in America. This is practically a greatest hits album because you have the logical song, Goodbye Stranger, Breakfast in America, Take the Long Way Home, Lord Is It Mine, Child of Vision. Just a fantastic album from these guys. Supertramp was a fantastic band. This album, along with Crime of the Century, are two must-haves. And if anything, Crime of the Century is one of those hi-fi albums. So if you ever want to crack in a fresh piece of hi-fi gear, Crime of the Century is the one to go to. But this one stands out as being my favorite, simply because it has a bunch of hits on it. Now we get into some early 2000s nu metal with System of a Down, and this is their second album, Toxicity. This album comes straight out of my middle school years. I played the crap out of this album when I was in my early teens, and I was very happy when they reissued their catalog on vinyl because it was rightly deserved. The one that everyone knows off of this album is Chop Suey, but there's some other great tracks on here like Prison Song, Forest, the title track, as well as Aerials. Serj Tankian has such a distinctive voice that immediately upon hearing his voice, you know exactly who you're listening to. And then we get to some hard Irish rock with Thin Lizzy, Johnny the Fox. This album features my favorite Thin Lizzy song, and that is Massacre. Just a great, awesome song. And then we also have things like Don't Believe a Word, Borderline, Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Weed. The early, like, 70s Thin Lizzy records are absolutely sensational, but out of all of them, this one stands out the most to me. And then we get into some common territory with one of the greatest debut albums of all time, and that is the debut release from Van Halen. And there are a lot of staples on this record. We have, of course, Running with the Devil, Eruption, which is Eddie Van Halen's classic solo spotlight, the cover of The Kinks' You Really Got Me, Ain't Talking About Love, Jamie's Crying. The Atomic Punk is probably my favorite track on this. I'm the One, Little Dreamer, Feel Your Love Tonight. It's sensational. This is another must-have for any rock fan out there. Just absolutely sensational. And then we get into some newer territory. I have talked about this album before on my channel. I don't think this will be the last time I'll talk about this album. It's truly one of my all-time favorite modern rock albums, and this is a guy that needs more and more love in the VC, and that is Kurt Vile, Smoke Ring for My Halo. When I became a Kurt Vile fan back in 2016, I was just on a mission to get all of his works and listen to it just to have it. And with this album, upon first listen, I fell in love with it. This is a great Kurt Vile record. His early stuff is more in the lo-fi vein, and he got more polished in his more recent stuff. This is a good kind of in-between. It's still kind of rough around the production, but it's still, the songwriting itself is a bit more concise. There's tracks on here like Baby's Arms, which is just a great ballad. Jesus Fever, Puppet to the Man, Society is My Friend, which is a really eerie, dark kind of tune. Peeping Tomboy, Ghost Town. You get little bits of like Neil Young and Tom Petty here and there on this record. This is one that I wholeheartedly recommend to any music lover. And then we get into some Pink Floyd territory with a solo album from Mr. Roger Waters, and that is This the Life We Really Want? I have a lot of fondness for this album. Back when it came out in 2017, I was really anticipating it. The girlfriend and I listened to it together upon receiving it, and it was also the corresponding tour that he did. It was the Us and Them tour, which her and I saw together, and that was also the very first concert that we went together as a couple. So this album and that tour have a special place in my heart. And if you know how Roger is, he's very vocal about his politics, and that's definitely there on this record. So if you're anti-politics, you might not like this album. But musically, bits and pieces sound like it could be a great long-lost Pink Floyd album. Deja Vu sounds like something that came straight out of the wall. Picture That has this sort of bass groove that kind of reminds me of Sheep a little bit. Smell the Roses is kind of like Have a Cigar redux in a way. And then, of course, there's some more beautiful un-Floyd-like tunes that are very distinctive for Roger, like The Last Refugee, The Most Beautiful Girl, Wait for Her, and then he hits all the political points with the title track, Is This the Life We Really Want, as well as Picture That. This is just a really great record, very much a social commentary of the current political climate, and if you can put all that kind of aside, musically, it's a brilliant album. And then we get into some female singer-songwriter type territory with Waxahachie, and the album is called Out in the Storm. Back when I first saw Waxahachie live, when she opened for Courtney Barnett, she performed a selection of songs from this album. Sparks Fly was one of them, Recite Remorse. The album opens up with a really cool electric opener called Never Been Wrong. It's a really rockin' tune. This is just a really great record. Waxahachie has several albums out, her most recent one being St. Cloud, which is just a fantastic listen. I wholeheartedly recommend it. But this one definitely stands out as being my favorite simply because I was able to hear a lot of these tracks live, and it was those tracks that made me really dig deeper into her discography and ultimately pick up all of her works. And then we get to perhaps one of the most loved alternative rock bands from the past 20 plus years, and that is Weezer. And this is their self-titled album, or their third album, the Green Album, however you want to call it. I very easily could have picked the Blue Album because that is a masterpiece, but this right here, this is solid, and this is straight to the point, no filler. It doesn't overstay its welcome. This album pretty much clocks precisely at 30 minutes, and it's just an absolutely fantastic record. This is like the Beach Boys through Marshall Stax. I mean, it's powerful stuff. It opens up with Don't Let Go, and then we have some notable tracks on this record like Photograph, Hash Pipe, Island in the Sun, Crab, which is probably my favorite track on this, Simple Pages, Smile. This is just a brilliantly sculpted record, and of course, as you can tell, original master recording, it is indeed the MoFi pressing. Got this for about $20, and it sounds absolutely killer. Definitely recommend it for the music alone and the pressing itself. Now we have one of my favorite bands of all time, and it's the leader of this band that made me pursue the hobby of collecting vinyl, and that is the White Stripes' White Blood Cells. Now, I could have easily picked Elephant because it has so many knockout tunes like Seven Nation Army, Black Math, The Hardest Button to Button, But I chose this because literally there is not a bad track on this record. It just hits you one after the other after the other. Opens up with Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, Hotel Yorba, Fell in Love with a Girl, We're Gonna Be Friends. You know, there's a lot of notable White Stripes tunes on here that basically, you know, helped with their rise to success. And then, of course, we have some other great tracks on here, like The Union Forever, one of my personal favorites, The Same Boy You've Always Known. And then on the B-side, you get a bunch of knockout tracks like Offend in Every Way, I Think I Smell a Rat, Aluminum, I Can't Wait, Now Mary, I Can Learn. If you want to hear one of the all-time greatest rock albums from the 2000s, this is one you need to check out. And still kind of keeping in line with the Jack White kind of vein, we have his 2014 solo album, Lazaretto. It was around the time that this album came out that I started to seriously pursue collecting vinyl. And this, of course, I mean, it's the sole vinyl pressing that they've done for it. It's the Ultra LP pressing, which has the holographic angel on the A side, and it plays backwards. And then you have locked grooves on both sides and playable labels. It's all kinds of wacky stuff. But there are some great tracks on here. We have the bluesy opener, Three Women, Lazaretto, which is just a great funky rock tune, the great kind of country-esque, folky, Temporary Ground, Highball Stepper, which is a rockin' instrumental, Just One Drink, Alone in My Home, Entitlement, Want and Able. It's all over the place musically. Jack White is always eclectic when it comes to his solo stuff, so there's a little bit of everything on this album for people to enjoy, and it definitely stands out as being my favorite solo album of Jack's. And now we go right back into classic territory with The Who's Quadrophenia. Now, in my personal opinion, I think this album is slightly better than Tommy. Put down your pitchforks. It is just my opinion. I just feel that the overall storyline of this record is just a bit more relatable than Tommy. And that's not, you know, dissing Tommy. I think Tommy is a masterpiece of an album, but I just feel like people can get more out of this record by the whole kind of mod themed storyline on this album. You have, this is almost like The Who goes Prague in a sense. This is just an absolutely adventurous record to listen to. You have things like The Real Me, The Dirty Jobs, 515, Bellboy, which features Keith Moon on vocals. It's quite comical. And of course, the closer, Love Reign Over Me. Just an absolutely adventurous record to listen to. And if you haven't listened to this album, what are you doing? It's sensational. And then we get to one of the most important American music geniuses, and that is Brian Wilson, and this is his first solo album from the late 80s. A lot of people can say that this is his kind of second take on Pet Sounds. There are a lot of great introspective songs on this record from Brian, such as Love and Mercy, which is probably his most notable solo composition, Melt Away, Little Children is pretty fun, One for the Boys is like a great homage to the Beach Boys harmonies, Nighttime is kind of quirky and poppy. Let It Shine, Rio Grande, which is almost like Smile territory in terms of the arrangements and the structure of the song. It's just this great epic Brian Wilson piece. The one thing you need to take away, though, when you listen to this album is the presence of Eugene Landy, his controlling doctor, business partner, psychiatrist, whatever you want to call it. We don't like to talk about him when we talk about Brian Wilson, but if you take away that aspect, this is a solid Brian Wilson album, and this is him, I think, coming fully back to his own after he had done Pet Sounds, Smile, and then everything kind of spiraled in and out. He reemerged in the 70s, but it just wasn't all there, and I think he had finally nailed it after, 20 years or so. Fantastic record. Then we go into some proggy territory with Yes. And this is my favorite album of theirs. This is Going for the One. This was them kind of adapting to the whole different climate in the music world. Punk and new wave was really coming in. Yes, we're seen as dinosaurs, but they made a somewhat rather contemporary record, I would say, that's still very much in the Yes vein. It's classic. There's no Roger Dean artwork. We just have the Hypnosis album cover here. The title track, which opens up the album, is a great rockin' tune. The very beautiful Turn of the Century. Chris Squire's composition Parallels, which is pretty cool. Wondrous Stories, which was a huge hit off of this record in the UK. And then it closes with the epic Awaken, which is just Yes at their most majestic. And it also features the classic lineup of John Anderson, Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Alan White, and Rick Wakeman. When it's those five guys, they could never really do wrong. Or maybe it was the next record that they did wrong after this. That's a whole other topic. But this is a great record. Yes, going for the one. And now we're on to the last record of this entire series, and that is ZZ Top Fandango. This is a half live, half studio album. I wonder if Kiss got their template of Kiss Alive 2 from this album. I'm not quite sure. But this is a great record. On the live side, we have things like Thunderbird, cover of Jailhouse Rock, and a backdoor medley, which has Backdoor Love Affair, Long Distance Boogie. And then on the studio side, we have some classic ZZ Top tracks, such as Balinese, Heard It on the X, which is my favorite, and of course Tush. Just an absolutely great southern rock album from ZZ Top. And that is all, folks. There you guys go. That is part 4, the final part of favorite albums of artists that I collect. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you overall enjoyed this series. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel, be sure to check me out on Patreon. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.